Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to find an equivalent fraction. What does it mean to find an equivalent fraction? First, let's make sure we understand what it means equivalent fraction. So let's look at these two circles here. The first circle here, we cut it into two equal portions. So there's a reason why the bottom here is going to be 2, because we divided it into two equal parts. And if you look at this circle here, we divided it into 4 equal parts. Now this one, only one portion of these two equal parts is shaded, so it's 1 out of 2. And this one here, it's two parts of these 4 equal parts that are shaded, so it's 2 out of 4. So if you're looking at this fraction and this fraction, you might not want to believe that they mean exactly the same thing. But if you're looking at the picture, these two guys means exactly the same thing. Because if you look at it, the same amount of portion here is the same amount of portion here that is shaded, same amount. So they mean exactly the same thing. So that's what equivalent fraction really means. That half is exactly the same thing as 2/4, and that's why. So let's do some problems and the way to solve them. Let's say that they give you a problem that says write a fraction that is equivalent to 5/8 and has a denominator of 32. So let's look at 5/8. What is the denominator here? Which is the bottom number. It's 8. But they want a new fraction that is equivalent to that guy, but instead of a denominator of 8, they wanted to have a denominator of 32. So that's what they say here. Now the thing is, try to think, how do you jump from 8 to 32? Always think in terms of multiplication or division. How do you think they jumped from 8 to 32? What did they do? Did they multiply or divide? Obviously they multiply because the number is getting bigger. If the number was to get smaller, they would probably just divide. Now, how do you go from 8 to 32? By multiplying. I would have to multiply by what? I would have to multiply by 4. So it's only 8 times 4 that gives me 32. Now, here's a rule that you need to remember. We're going to use it a lot. Whatever you do to the bottom number, you have to do it to the top as well. So if I multiply the bottom by 4, what do I have to do to the top? I have to multiply it also by 4. So my fraction that was 5/8 now becomes something new. It becomes what? 5 times 4, which is 20, and 8 times 4, which is 32. So that's how you would change your 5/8 fraction into an equivalent fraction, which is 20/32. Let's look at another example. Now let's say that this is to write a fraction that is equivalent to 2/3 and has a denominator of 42. Now let's try to do it the same way we did the last problem. So 2/3 and you want a denominator of 42. Now here's a problem. It's not that obvious to jump from 3 to 42. It's not obvious just to see what number do you have to multiply 3 by to get to 42. So that means 3 times one number will give you 42. So that's the thing. If it's not that obvious to know what do I have to multiply 3 by to get to 42, what I would advise you is to do is to take this number, the larger number, and divide it into 3 to find that number that you need to multiply 3 by to get to 42. That means what? We're going to take the big number here, 42, and we're going to divide it into by 3. So again, remember this one goes inside, and this one goes on the outside. Now, how many times 3 goes into 4? Once. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. Bring down the 2. How many times 3 goes into 12? 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 take away 12 is 0. So we have a remainder of 0. So 3 goes into 42 14 times. So what it means again means that 3 times 14 is 42. And you can check by literally doing 3 times 14. So 3 times 4 is 12, carry a 1, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 42. There we go. So how do you jump from 3 to 42? You have to multiply the 3 by what? By 14. Again, remember the rule. Whatever you do on the bottom, you have to do it to the top. So I'll multiply this by 14 to get to 42, which is what I want. So I have to do the same to the top. So again, what is 14 times 2? 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. So 28/42 is your final answer. Let's do one last example. Now let's say that they ask you to write 4 as a fraction that has a denominator of 12. Now, We have 4. And you want to write it as a fraction that has a denominator, so that means the 12 has to be on the bottom, a denominator of 12. Now here's the problem. I have a whole number here which is not a fraction, and I want to change it into a fraction that has a denominator of 12, which is weird. Now the thing is, you need to know that rule. Here's one rule that you need to remember. To change any number into a fraction, any number, doesn't matter what number it is, you have to put it over 1. So that's how you change any number into a fraction. So if you have 3 by itself like this, and they ask you to change this number into a fraction, you will put it over 1. Any number you can think of. 29, they ask you to change this into a fraction, you'll put it over 1. So that's the first step. Now that you know that the fraction that you have right now is 4 over 1 instead of 4 as the beginning, you change that whole number into a fraction. Now you're going to ask yourself, how do you jump from 1 to 12? Think in terms of, again, multiplication or division. But in this case, you're trying to go to a bigger number. So you have to multiply. So how do you go from 1 to 12? What do you have to multiply 1 by to get to 12? And this one is pretty obvious. It's 1 times 12. That gives me 12. And whatever I do on the bottom, where do I have to do it? I have to do it to the top. So remember that rule. Whatever you do on the bottom, do it to the top. So 1 times 12 is 12. And 4 times 12 is, so let's check. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. So 4 times 12 is 48. So your final answer is 48 over 12. Thanks for watching and make sure you practice.